And I surely do miss him, but they were really nice.
Jim Murphy, who y'all, do you know him? He's active in a lot of things in Brentwood. He grew up there at the children's home.
Really? Well, do you know there was a couple, the Robert Underwoods, Nell and Robert Underwood, and they grew up there.
Yeah.
But both of them are dead now. Mr. Underwood was sort of a maintenance man for years and years and years. Oh, they had two sons, and the wife of one of those boys works down here at the, the stationery shop.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But tell us about your bookstore.
Well, I just wish we had gotten going in that bookstore when we were a little bit younger. I didn't want to do it to begin with.
Was it the first bookstore in Franklin?
Yeah, the first one that's been there since I've been here. I don't. They say there was a little lady down there, and she lived where that College Grove Bank. There's a real estate office there next door to where the
Is it Shay? Was she Miss Nell Shay?
Yes, that's who it was. They said she had a little bookstore at one time. And of course, Miss Howard had the library when you just went in. It was just a hall in that lawyer's office, where the old bank was. But my husband had retired from Genesco, and he was working for a computer company that did contracting computer work. And he decided that he wanted to do something for himself, and he retired, and I fussed, but we built the bookstore and got going, and I didn't want to give it up.
How long were you there?
15 years.
Yeah. And the bookstore's still there?
Yes. It's been through several hands since then. Calvin was getting going on all of his fancy work then, and the rent was too high for us to think about. So.
Now, when you used to come over here through Weichel Road, tell us about Weichel Road. It dead ends up here now, but it didn't always.
It went across the where the interstate is now. And you know, there's some property over there where they still use the Weichel Road name. But it went clear over to the Pereira's place, and the Pereiras had an entrance to Wilson Pike, to their farm. So it went a long way.
Now tell us about the Pereiras.
Brownie is a real sure enough Williamson County native.
She's a nice lady.
She, her mother was a bond, and of course, you know, Bethesda's full of bonds, and her family lived out there on Lewisburg Pike. Did you know Buddy, her brother, who ran the farm after his brother's father was gone?
I did. She was an Anderson.
That's right. Mm-hmm. The Andersons were pretty prominent too.
A big farm out on Lewisburg Pike.
And a big family of Andersons. And Jenny Gant and Brownie's sister, Mary Frances, were the only three first cousins left in the Anderson family. And they, you know, they have a big reunion every year. And they used to have it at Brownie's house out there on Lewisburg Pike. But that's not true any longer. Brownie and I see a good bit of each other. We're still girls enough to trust each other with our secrets. There are things that each one of us will say, now I'm not going to tell this to anybody else, but...
Well, I wouldn't tell it to anybody else. Well, tell us about Brownie's career at the Lipscomb School. I think that's interesting.
Well, haven't you done a video of her?
No.
Well, they asked her one time to do a video of Lipscomb School. I don't know. Brownie, when my children were at Lipscomb School, which wasn't very long, Ella Hayes was my mentor. Ella and I also had kinfolks in common.
Now tell us who Ella.
Ella
Hayes
was
is.
Mrs. McGavock Hayes, who lived at the Brentwood Country Club when it was a private home. It was, of course, the ancestral home of her husband's. But she told me that my children had to go back to Davidson County to school.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, here we go to Davidson County.
Mhm.
We paid $10 a month for them to
Okay.
go to Robertson Academy. And then they built the Lipscomb School that burned.
Uh-huh.
I think it burned in '51. We somewhere around here have a cup, a broken cup that has 51 on it that my children picked up down there. And we put them at Lipscomb School then, and it was the most joyful experience I had. We just loved Lipscomb School. Brownie ran the lunchroom in those days. And then she had Frankie, and she stayed home with him for a while, and her husband said to her, and if you didn't know Brownie's cousin, Brownie's husband, you missed knowing that character.
I knew him.
He was a real character. And he
Mark.
told her, said, you've got a degree from Vanderbilt. If you were going to go back and work for that school, I don't know why you don't teach. And so she did go into teaching. And she taught English at what we call Northside. They now call Brentwood Middle.
Uh-huh.
Until she was old enough to retire. And Brownie's like the rest of us. She's old enough to retire.
Well, the Careers were an interesting family.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I knew Little Mark real well.
Did you? Do you know young Mark, who's the lawyer now?
Yes, oh,
Is-
yeah.
Isn't
Mark
he a
the Third.
nice young
Oh,
man?
yeah, nice guy.
Oh, and did you go to school with his? No, you didn't go to the Williamson
No,
County School.
I paid tuition to go to Davidson County too.
Uh-huh,
But I just knew him.
uh-huh.
But they were very creative people.
Yes. Well, you didn't know any of the boys, the
I
older.
knew them by reputation, but they were older than I was. They all went to Purdue.
Yes, the two younger ones did. Oh,
I remember
Dan
old
and
Miss
Dan.
Pereira.
What?
I remember old Miss Pereira, Miss Cornelia.
yes, and you know that she had. Tommy said she got on the bus one time to go to town, and she said, "I gotta get those boys some new pants." So I don't know what had happened and why Miss Pereira felt like but I bet you she let them go till the creeks were rising.
She used to drive an old one-seated blue Dodge, I remember that.
Well, she was quite a character and quite social. She loved playing bridge and getting out and mingling with people.
Well, who was she?
Oh, she was Gillette,
Gillette.
and she
Okay.
came from Oklahoma.
Okay.
But you know there's a Mr. Frank Gillette?
And the Gillette farm is out on Hillsborough Road,
Really?
which is now the subdivision. What they call that?
Fieldstone Farms.
No, out on Berry Chapel
Oh.
Road.
Is it? I didn't realize.
Big farm out there. No, it's on Hillsborough in Berry Chapel. Berry Chapel on the other side of Hillsborough.
Cottonwood.
Cottonwood. Cottonwood's the
Oh.
old Gillette place.
I
right.
see. Well, that's how she happened to get into Williamson County again.
Okay.
She was
I did
crazy
not know
about
that.
Uncle Frank Gillette.
That was the old Gillette place.
And young Frank, her son, Frank, is named for Mr. Gillette.
Mhm.
His name is Frank Gillette.
Small world.
He was on the board of, the board of directors of the NC St. L Railroad.
Oh.
And so was my father-in-law. And That's my connection with Mr. Gillette. I don't know anything else about him, except Ms. Pereira was crazy about him.
I knew the Pereiras were connected, but I really never knew any men.
She has some interesting points on her community club.
What community club?
The Brentwood Hills Community Club.
Okay, tell us about that.
I have some yearbooks from the community club. There had been a Brentwood Community Club, but they organized this Brentwood Hills, and you had to live in Williamson County, and we only had 30 members. We couldn't have over 30 members. So you had to stand in line and wait to be a member of this exclusive club. But we had such interesting people in the Brentwood Hills Community Club. And it was not connected with the government at all. You know, you may not know, but I'm sure Mayor Lou knows that you have home demonstration agents who organize and plan programs for these community clubs. But this was all done by Mrs. A.J. Dahl, who lived where the Fowlers live now.
Well, I see the past presidents here, Mrs. Arthur J. Dyer,
Yeah.
1843. A lot of interesting people here. Ms. Charles P. Wilson.
That's right.
Now, who was she?
And this club, those people made life so pleasant, and it was so gracious. In the meetings, you just really looked forward to it. And my son Chuck and Mrs. Dyer's grandson, Jim Dyer, who I assume is A.J. Dyer, 4th or 5th or something like that, are real good friends. And the thing they both remember about it, Mrs. Dyer's house was like this, only about 3 or 4 times bigger, and she had 2 parlors. Instead of where my bedroom is, she had a parlor. And every Christmas she built a village in those 2 fireplaces. And that Chuck, that's his Christmas to Chuck, to remember by Mrs. Dyer. Villages would show up. And Mrs. Wilson, oh, she was just the sweetest person.
Well, Ms. Dyer lived at what's now Meadow Lake.
That's right. The whole place was hers.
Right. And the Wilsons lived at what's now
Mount View.
It's Mount View Fountainhead. Is that the name?
Well, the subdivision is Fountainhead. She had some curtains that at Christmas time, they were like net curtains, and she sewed sequins and sparkly things all over those curtains and hung them just for the Christmas.
And the Pereiras, now this is another set of Pereiras here, Ms. William Pereira.
That's right. And now they are, according to Mrs.
She's still living, isn't she?
This Ms. Pereira, no, you know, she had Alzheimer's, and she lived for years.
She was at the...
But she, out at the Meadows, but she died about a year and a half ago. And I tell you, her son is the business manager for that Christ community
CPA.
church. Mrs. Pereira, she came from Nashville, and we had gone to church with her at the old Moore Memorial Church. And her father was also with the M&C Railroad. And then Ms. McGavock came. Oh, Ms. Pereira lived at Windy Hill, which is on Old Small Spinal Road. And I assume the Simpsons still live there, don't they?
They do.
And Mrs. Hayes, of course, is dead. As I say, she was my mentor. And if Ella Hayes said, stand on your head next week to come to the club, I would have tried my best to do it.
If she said it was so, it was so.
Yeah. I loved, one thing that I looked at our garden when I came home today reminded me of Ella Hayes. One time we went to her house for a meeting, and she had a long, old-fashioned wash tub, and in the back parlor, which I think was their dining room, she had that wash tub full of corn stalks, the silks on the corn. Not the silks, what's showing now.
Shucks.
Yeah. Oh. And that always reminded me of that. Miss Frank King moved away a long, long time ago. She had a daughter named Judy. Do you remember Judy?
Oh, sure. Mary Jo Eggleston.
That's right.
But they lived on Old Smyrna.
That's right.
And then they moved over on Concord. They lived at the old Green Hill place for several years on Concord.
That's right.
Maybe lost track of when they moved over there.
I had forgotten that.
And then
And Miss John Holt,
Odell Hope.
she was really, that's the reason we went to Brentwood Church for a long time. I took my children down there to Bible school, and Tom came home and said, I wish I could be in Mrs. Holt's Sunday school class. So we went to Sunday school down there. Mrs. Seward lived, of course, where Brentwood Methodist Church is now. And
Virginia Dennis.
she, she lived where the
Where the Kroger. No, H.G. Hill.
H.G. Hills. I was thinking it was down there where Blockbuster is now, something like that. But that was her place there. And
Then the Elams.
the Elams lived over there where the Cumberland Presbyterian Church is now.
And that house is still there.
Yes. And the apartment they built for their in-laws, Mr. and Ms. Elam Sr. And they are the ones, of course, that started Whiteway Laundry. And
Tell us about Battle Rhodes now. He's one of my favorite people, was one of my favorite people in the world.
who is that?
Battle Rhodes.
Oh, listen here. Sarah Rhodes was about the most famous people of everybody in Nashville and Davidson and Williamson County was crazy about Sarah Rhodes.
She was a pariah too.
Yeah, she sure was. And she claims that she was kin to me because my mother was kin to the Pierces, and she said, there's a Pierce pariah that's a judge, William Pierce. One time they had a horse show and a picnic and invited everybody, and they had box seats for everybody. Do you remember that?
No.
Well, the box seats were the boxes that the blasting caps had come in for Mr. Rhodes' Franklin limestone business.
Oh.
And Mrs. Tippins, she is the only one I think that is still living.
She's in Chicago.
She's in a nursing home, and I used to send her cards, and her sister who lives over, in a retirement center over on Hillsborough Road, she said, I don't think Edna knows when you send those things. Mrs. Whitaker lived in a house very much like this one. It was over there where Cool Springs is now. But, of course, I don't know why Ella rated 2 places in the book. And, of course, Mrs. Fuqua is living in the retirement home over there. It was the old ladies' home, but
West End.
it was where the Hippodrome was.
Oh yeah, the skating rink.
Back up there behind there. But it's down on Vanderbilt Place now. Mrs. Cartwright, I cannot tell you anything about. I don't know what became of her. Mrs. Noho lived on Tyne Lane, and she moved from there to the original Carter house.
Right, out on off Old Hillsborough Road.
That's right. And Miss George Woodruff lived over in your neighborhood.
She sure did.
Miss Stanley Horn lived, I think I saw a picture of that house the other day. They have done the most remarkable job of redoing that house.
She's
There's-
still there, isn't she?
I'm not sure, she was in bad shape when they sold that place.